Hi Veronika, how you doing?
Hi, there we go.
Sorry to keep you waiting. I was caught up on the golf course and I was sorry to be so late.
No problem.
How you doing?
Did you win? Like, did you get all the points with the
No,
golf?
sadly I didn't
Did
win
you?
today. Today was not my best game, but my brother won, which is always nice.
Okay,
But
awesome.
no, I didn't win today. It was
All right, so hello, my name is Veronika Scott. I'm from the Empowerment Plan. We run a nonprofit that you're very familiar with, but our focus is on ending generational poverty through employment. Thank you, Tom, for taking the time to talk about it and really what your family's foundation has done for us over the years. Brothers Trust has donated over $88,000 since supporting Empowerment Plan back in 2018.
oh, I'm
So
delighted.
thank you so much.
Yeah, no, you're
Thanks
welcome.
for
No,
joining me.
thank you for doing what you're doing. What you guys are doing is an amazing thing, and it was a bit of a no-brainer for us to help you guys out and to shed some light on your amazing charity. Did you set up the charity? Was it your initiation? And where did you get the
Yeah,
idea from? How did you come to set up the empowerment plan?
so it was a class project of mine in college.
Okay.
I was studying industrial design, so I have no experience in business or anything like that prior to Empowerment Plan. And for me, it's a deeply personal project. Both of my parents have struggled with homelessness, poverty, and
Oh,
addiction for
wow.
my entire life. And so, just by the way that people treated me and my siblings growing up as if we were like worthless by extension,
Sure.
you feel like you're digging out of a hole. So, I
Wow.
wanted to create an opportunity that I wish my own family could have been given.
Yeah.
And so, creating that employment didn't start off that way, but it started with just designing the coat.
What I love about
So,
the charity is obviously the coat is fantastic, and I will say that I have used the coat on many occasions when we've got a
that's
spare
great.
coat lying around, especially when it's on. When you guys came to visit us on set, um, and it was really cold, I was
Hmm.
using the coat in the trailer because
You
it's
were? Oh my
fantastic.
God,
It's
I
so
love
well
it.
made.
I love it.
But one of the things I love about the charity is the name and calling yourselves the empowerment plan for people who are going through the process of being helped by your charity. It makes them feel less like they're subject to charity and more like they're being given the opportunity to help themselves. They're empowered to change their own lives. And I think that's a really powerful thing because it gives people the confidence to know that they were helped in the process of changing their lives, but ultimately they were the ones that did the hard work.
Exactly. I think the name for some people is confusing. They're like, well, you do coats. Why aren't you the coat project or something
Sure.
like that? It's like, the coats are the tip of the iceberg. The
Mm-hmm.
coats are a band-aid for a systemic issue. And
Yeah.
what really has the impact is hiring the people that would need it in the first place.
Yeah.
And the things that we do with them, like, when we're at the job, we only spend 60% of our week, the paid week, making coats. The rest, everyone's getting paid to go through GED classes, domestic violence support groups,
Wow.
things of that nature. And I think that's why we stick to our guns when we say it's the empowerment plan. And
Yeah.
yes, we love the coat and it has had such a wide reach, but it's really about supporting those that we employ and the whole family. Like, it's really incredible.
It's amazing.
Yes.
It's amazing. And I mean, I remember I was shooting in Birmingham, Alabama, like 2 years ago, and you guys sent us, I think you sent us like 50 coats or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And my
Yeah,
sister and I at the time, we just walked around Birmingham, Alabama with this
I
massive
love
box
it.
of coats, just handing them out and then like demonstrating to people how they worked. And at first, people were like really confused. And then, we'd drive to work and we'd see people on the street with their coats. And it was a really good feeling. And the coats are great. I mean, the coats are really, really well made.
We're always surprised. Like, everyone's always surprised
Sure.
by the quality of the coat. They're like, I would wear this coat. We get post-apocalyptic chic often, like that
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like streetwear stylish, which is
You
I find
see
really funny,
Versace
especially
picking
when we
it
did a
up very soon.
camouflage one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that would. We actually did a collaboration not with Versace but with a company called Kid Super, and they had an artist screen print patterns on the outside of the coat and auction and sell them to raise money for us, and it ended up in like Vogue and stuff. It was just
No way.
absolutely
That's
but
amazing.
it's a testament to the people that are making it. I think everybody has this misconception when they show it up at Empowerment Plan. They're like, so this person was homeless, and they have this idea in their head of what homelessness looks like,
Sure.
and they're like, oh, homeless person is this person sitting on a street corner with a sign, and they're not working, they're lazy. Like, there's so many misconceptions
Mhm.
around homelessness. And I know personally from having grown up in it myself, like, homelessness is not a defining characteristic. It doesn't tell you
Absolutely.
anything about the person except for the fact that they're displaced. And I think that's the thing. When people walk in and they meet the team, I always get the same comment like, "Oh, I can't believe this person was homeless." And I'm like,
Sure.
"So what did you expect to see when you showed up here today?"
Yeah, it's
And I
interesting.
think that's so surprising.
Yeah, my dad wrote a book, and a large portion of the book is about homelessness. And it really changed my view on it. And you walk down the street, and you see people seeing homeless people, and they try so hard not to make eye contact. It's a really sad
Yep.
truth, is you see people, and you see people almost like deliberately looking the opposite way, and they look so uncomfortable.
Hmm.
And since reading his book and working with you guys, it's a totally different process for me. And I always stop and have a chat, and and buy them food or give them money, or whatever it is that they need at the time. Um, but no, my dad's book is an interesting insight into homelessness. Yeah.
Is that what got, you interested in empowerment plan, like, or philanthropy? Was kind of your dad and your parents? It sounds like it comes from your parents a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. My granny Tess, all of her sisters were missionaries in India and Africa. So we come from a family
Yeah.
of people who live to help. And I think
Hmm.
when they used to stay with my dad, well, they used to stay with my granny Tess when they were, because they all lived in Ireland, and then they'd come and live in London with granny Tess, and then they would go off to Africa and India and do whatever it was they were doing. I'm sure the
Right.
stories that my dad heard as a young boy really influenced him as the man he is today. And my dad's a very, very um, kind man, and he loves helping people. My dad's the kind of
Oh,
person we much rather give someone a gift than receive a gift. He's that type of bloke.
no.
So I definitely think my brothers and I, like, we've grown up in a household of helpers. Um,
Hmm.
and I think that's kind of what led us, I've been so lucky with what's happened to me in the last, 5 or 6 years. And I've been given this platform, and it was my parents that actually came up with the idea of setting up a
Hmm.
charity or a trust. And then it was kind of a collective idea to make it the Brothers Trust, not just the Tom Holland Trust, because
Yeah.
arguably my mum is the most involved person in this charity. She is such a
Mm.
hard worker. She's such a saint. Um, so it's been unbelievably rewarding. But I think the philanthropy, or just the helping, I'd rather use the word just helping,
Yeah.
is
Helping.
comes
Yeah.
probably from starts from my granny Tess, and then whittles down to my dad, and then whittles down to my mum, and then through us. So we're very lucky to be brought up the way we have been.
Yeah, your dad is awesome. I
Yeah.
love that he reps our merchandise and wrote the incredible, like, it
Yeah.
was great. His our most recent blog post about his bad golf game and
Oh, golf
supporting
game.
us.
I'll tell you what,
It,
the golf game would be better than mine today. My golf game today was just, it was abysmal. It was terrible.
I'm so sorry. I am not a sports person. I went to art school. But it's interesting how, family, that's what got me into doing this. My grandfather was in the Peace Corps in El Salvador for
Mhm.
many years. And I think that's just this now, I think in this era of feeling kind of hopeless and helpless with everything that's going on. One, what are some like bright spots for you, like in this crazy and dark time?
I mean, it's definitely been a crazy time. It's been so sad for some families, and for
Mm,
thousands and thousands and thousands of people around the world. I mean, it was the Brothers Trust is, at the end of the day, a fundraising vehicle, and we use that vehicle to distribute
mm-hmm.
funds to charities like yourself, or charities around the globe that we think have a hard time getting the light or the recognition that they deserve. But obviously, at this difficult time where people aren't going to work, lots of people haven't been paid, people are
Yeah.
spending a lot more money just living at home because they've got nothing else to do. We felt a little uncomfortable doing fundraising, because we kind of felt like people needed to just keep their own money and look after themselves. So what we did was we had all sorts of different events. We had this thing called the Jigsaw Wars, which was basically this kind of crazy game where you could buy a jigsaw and you had to do it in a certain amount of time. Dad's house and my house had a bit of a race, and we ended up winning actually, which was amazing. I can't believe that we beat my old man.
Good job.
And then we also had a few pub quizzes, which went down really well, although the media kind of slated me as the worst pub quiz host of all time.
I'm really sorry about
I'll
that.
wear that title
Terrible.
proudly. But basically what we wanted to try and achieve was we wanted to try and galvanize a community of people and give like people a nice evening, give them the opportunity to kind of forget about everything that's happening in the world and just enjoy being part of the Brothers Trust. But fundraising is something that will pick up soon, I'm sure, when everybody's back to work and everybody's making some more money.
I know that's been such a hard thing with us as well. Like I think everybody's is experiencing this, and our concern for the people that we serve. And we were lucky that we didn't lay anybody off when COVID hit. We were able to keep everybody employed, and then we started producing hospital gowns, which was great. So we're able to produce.
Yeah,
PPE.
my mum was saying that's amazing.
Yeah, we were really lucky, but it's, you know, you look at all these other nonprofit organizations that we're big fans of, but that aren't going to be able to weather this, which is really heartbreaking. You know, it's been a wild ride also to how do we support our team when this very understandable uprising and this attention around police brutality, all that's happening. Absolutely. You know, how do we support them emotionally as well? Because, you know, think about their kids. Yeah, but absolutely. You know, it's just so tough. But when you think about all these charities that are in need right now, how do you guys choose? Because there's just, and right now there's so much need. Like how do you pick?
I mean, there's loads of different things. The big thing on our criteria is that we like to find charities that wouldn't necessarily get the recognition that the big charities get. You know, we really focus on charities where we can make sure that the majority, or if not all of the money that we're donating goes towards the cause. For example, the Lunch Bowl Network, I've got it here. It's 97p of every pound donated goes towards feeding children in Africa. So that's a great margin. And, you know, we like to find the charities that people don't know about. We have a charity called Storybook Dads, which is an amazing charity. And it's a charity, like you often find that it's really easy to raise money for puppies and for donkeys and stuff like that. But raising money for people who are in prison is really difficult. And Storybook Dads is basically a charity where the dads who are in prison can record a storybook. They can read a book for their kids while they're in prison, and the book gets sent over to the kids, and it's got all sorts of illustrations and animations and stuff, which is really cool. And I've got a statistic here that says it's something to do with the reoffending rates have decreased for all the inmates who maintain a connection with their children. So it's an amazing charity, and it's a type of charity that just is really, really making a difference. So for us at the Brothers Trust, it's all about finding the smaller charities that really need our help, and my platform to try and shed some light onto them.
A friend of mine, if you guys want, my friend has a publishing house that is about writing books for Black and brown kids. And like making sure that they're represented. So if you guys want some books, she also donates them to like buy one, give one, basically. You buy one. She lives in Santa Monica, LA. They donate them to schools across the country. But it's really cool. I'll send you the link just so you can check it out.
That's awesome.
But you know, it's about Mae Jemison, you know, the first Black female astronaut, and you know, stuff like that. It's just incredible. Awesome. So I love hearing about charities that organizations you wouldn't normally hear about. You know, for us,
that's exactly what we're
and you look at some of the bigger organizations, and not to discredit anything, but I think there's going to be a trend towards giving more towards the smaller organizations that are doing direct community work. Absolutely. Like that, you know, by whether in our example, like supporting a coat, you know, one, you're going to see the coat, you've actually handed them physically to people, and then you know the money is going back to the wages and for materials and things like that. So I think that's going to be a big thing.
Like we're asking the general public to give us their money, and then we're asking them to trust us distribute their money in ways that we see fit. And with these larger charities, I mean, there's been loads of cases where you don't know where the money's gone. There's no evidence of
Yeah.
how the money's helped. You know that you've given it to someone to help. And what we're so grateful for and so delighted to keep doing is giving it to charities where we're seeing an immediate impact. These aren't like problems solved like years and years down the line. We're helping people like now and today, and hopefully tomorrow, and hopefully the next day. So it's really rewarding to be able to work with charities that make a difference every day.
And I think that's what we like with Empowerment Plan. It's a kind of a mixture of like a little bit of both. It's like there's that immediate thing that we can take care of with the coats, and that's again what we're known for. But then the bigger change, it takes years to see. Like seeing kids go off to different schools and get other jobs, and pursue all sorts of crazy things. That's the exciting thing that we get to see over time. But that's really hard, and that takes a ton of people supporting and believing that long-term change is going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially when I first started, especially like trusting a 21-year-old with a nonprofit organization. It wasn't the easiest thing. But what do you guys have? What's like something upcoming? Do you have a cool new project that you guys are working on that you can talk about?
Oh, I mean, we've been working on this thing called the Brothers Trust Dogs Club, which is basically we have these dogs collars that are made by Maasai ladies in Africa, and they make them for us, and then we sell them globally. And the idea is basically if you post a photo of your dog in our collar or cat, there's been a few cats. I'm not a cat fan myself, but they're in there. If you post a photo of your dog or cat, we'll put it in our Instagram, the Brothers Trust Dogs Club. It's quite a mouthful, that phrase. And then basically what Mum's done is she's created this collage of all of the photos of all the dogs, and it makes up a photo of Tess and me. And we'll be auctioning those off and raffling them off and all that sort of stuff. And hopefully, I mean, that won't, we won't be raising the big bucks there, but raising enough to help some people. So I think that's the most recent, that's the newest thing that will be coming out. But as of that, I'm not entirely sure what we've got planned.
Well, I can see you're using the trendy, sexy thing, getting some dogs and photos for fundraising.
Yeah,
I know.
I think one of the hard things for us, the biggest ways for us to fundraise are win a ticket to a premiere or come and visit me on set. Because of COVID, like we can't do any of that.
Can't do that.
They won't allow anyone on set. Like my mum, even if she wants to come and visit, she can't come to set, which is actually a really good thing because Mum drives me mental on set. But
I can only imagine.
No, she's great. She's lovely.
Your mom's the best though, so I can't say anything. She's like probably looking from the other corner. But yeah, that's the thing. It's like what is going to change? Like the new world. What it's what is it going to be like for us? So much of what we do every day is a lot of human contact. Like we're hugging somebody, we're sitting down and talking with them. Like I think that's what is why we're so successful. Like that's why every single person we've ever hired has moved out of the shelter, and not a single person has fallen back into homelessness once we've hired them. But that means a lot of like human interaction.
Sure.
That's what we're really proud of. And that's the thing that like when you're sponsoring coats and you're giving them out, you're funding all of that. And that's what's been a huge vehicle for us to do what we do.
How many?
But in the COVID era,
the empowerment plan. How many people?
I think we're at over 90 now.
Wow.
Close to 100. Again, when I first started, it was 3 people in a utility closet sewing coats. I had to learn how to sew from my mother, which was like the worst experience of her life and mine. And she says it wasn't the worst, but I remember like trying. I wanted it to be made of recycled materials, so I put old wool coats, orange construction fencing, because I also wanted it to be a tent. The tent part never panned out.
Right.
And like billboard fabric. And I was sewing that on a home sewing machine. And that thing had hundreds of broken needles in it.
Oh
And my mom
no.
and I were like just swearing and like trying to, it took 80 hours to make one.
Oh wow.
And by the time I brought the prototype back to the group that I've been working with that had been displaced for years, decades, the first group of people were like, there's no way I'm getting in that. One, when you stretched out because of the plastic sheeting that I had put in there, it looked like
Yeah.
a body bag.
Oh
And it weighed
no.
over 20 pounds. Yeah, weighed
Yeah,
over
not the
20
best.
pounds, which is a
How did
lot.
you come to your original your design? How did you guys find that?
So it was a process that I studied industrial design. So that was my major, but that's mostly like fast cars and shoes and,
Sure, sure,
the
sure.
coolest newest technology. So we were then given an opportunity to design to fill a need in the community. And this was back in 2010. And the economy had collapsed and Detroit was going through bankruptcy. So as a city, the city was going bankrupt.
Wow.
And the needs in that community, like the needs in Detroit were just huge, like laundry lists of stuff. You have like public transportation that was falling apart. We had 1 in 72 people were homeless in Detroit at that point. Like
Oh,
that was the counted number. So that meant was about 20,000 people counted homeless, and we had over 70,000 abandoned buildings. So, and I'm not just talking like a little piece of land. It could be an entire like multi-story skyscraper, and that would come. It was a wild time.
when
So
was that?
people would just disappear, and this was 2010.
What?
Yeah. And yeah, so this wasn't that long ago when you think about it. And that's the climate that I started. And for me, all the jobs that we had been promised in the automotive industry and everything were gone. Like we
Oh,
had this, I was in college, like this is what you're supposed to go do. And so a group that was designing products around the world had come in and said, we want you to design to fill a need in the community. And when you looked at the Detroit community, there was just so much that needed to happen. It was,
sure.
think about it, there was a building for each person. So many people that were displaced and homeless, you couldn't even, it was just they would disappear into the landscape, and
Wow.
everyone liked to pretend that they wouldn't exist. And at the time too, Detroit wasn't boarding up a lot of the buildings because they were just so many, and a lot of people were living in these homes. I remember what first inspired the first coat I handed out was to a woman named Michelle, and I remember very vividly because she was living in a house, and she said, I'm living here. I was like, okay. And I look at the house, and there's no windows, there's no door. There is a space heater hooked up, I think, at some point through another building, and
Mm-hmm.
she was paying rent to live there. I had no running water, no nothing.
No
And
way.
I remember meeting her landlord that day too. He was coat recipient number 2. And I think for me, that happened more than, and like any of us realized, was just like people were getting taken advantage of. Their disability check was going to somebody just so that they could have a roof over their head. And
What?
people were dying that way of hypothermia, of exposure. Like it was that serious. And when I started designing the coat, it was because I had met 2 people that were living in a playground across the street from a shelter, like 20 feet away from a shelter. And they had made it into a makeshift house by covering it with tarps and
Yeah.
clothes. And I talked to them, came back a week later, and it was burned to the ground in a turf war, completely destroyed, like the cement like ripped from the ground. And the 2 people ended up passing away. And you know why would you go build yourself something when somebody's trying to give it to you for free 20 feet away?
Yeah.
And for me, that like what you were saying about like forcing charity on people, like that sense of like you're
Mm.
giving them this thing, that's what inspired Empowerment Plan. Like that moment of watching somebody risk their lives to build something for themselves, it goes back to like human dignity and pride and things that we don't think about or talk about when we talk about charity.
Wow.
Like the best example, there was a crazy, I hope you've never seen this, but like a sandwich drive-by was a common thing. I saw it firsthand, otherwise I wouldn't believe it would happen. But Detroit, where I was doing research in that part of Detroit, had the highest crime rate in the city, and people were terrified of that area. And so a charity group was given like a bunch of food to hand out. And you know, you've done food handouts. You get out of the car, you set up tables, you introduce yourself. This group would load up in a van. And this happened many different times. They were so afraid of that area that they would pull up to the shelter that I was at, the warming center, roll down the windows, and start throwing sandwiches out the window at people after slowing to a crawl, and then speed off. And I always wondered, did they like pat themselves on the back
I think
and
that's
say,
very good.
you know, good job, people were hungry and we fed them. And when you look at it like a math equation like that, that's when you get some very, very damaging work. Like, can you
Yeah.
imagine what it felt like to be hit in the face with a sandwich, that you're like some sort of feral animal, or that you're
Yeah.
something to be feared?
Yeah.
It's just, and that wasn't that long ago. It was just
Oh,
wild.
that really is awful.
So seeing that, yeah, just seeing the need, but also seeing like how people were trying to address the need,
Mhm.
like in their own ways. It's like, okay, so we need to do this differently. Like
Yeah, for
this,
sure.
this is not just about designing something for somebody. They have to be a part of the process. Like I spent at this one warming center, that like center of the crime rate of the city, I spent every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday night at 8 p.m. for months designing the coat with people. I still have a street name in that neighborhood. If you
Oh,
walk
do
around
you?
Detroit and ask for the crazy coat girl or the
No
coat
way.
lady, you get directed to me.
No way.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
very
Good for
proud,
you.
very proud.
That's amazing.
So it's just, so when you add, there's like so much that goes into it, but
Mm.
that's why Empower Plan has evolved so much.
Yeah.
And it's like the longer story of our origin.
Amazing.
Yeah, but thank you. It's exciting. I don't think you guys even knew that when you found Empowerment Plan,
No,
like all that.
no. I mean, I
How did you
always had,
even find us?
we actually found you through a company called CrowdRise,
Oh
which
yeah.
was,
Mm-hmm.
it was like a sort of system where you could run a raffle through it. And it was,
Mm-hmm.
I think, I don't remember whether it was a volunteer-based program or whether they charge you a very little amount if they did, and basically we would
Mm-hmm.
funnel through all the raffle tickets into there, and it would be like a safe way to find a winner. And
Yeah.
obviously, when we do these big raffles, we recognize that a lot of the money comes from the States. You know, we
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of fans in the States, and I'm very lucky to be, you know, quite a prominent figure over there. So we get lots of money coming in from the US, and we felt like we kind of had a duty to find charities in America to support.
What you guys talk about, it's helping. Like you want to get involved. It sounds like you guys want to, a lot of people will sponsor codes, but not actually go and hand them out themselves.
Yeah.
Like how has that experience been for you guys? What are some of your like funnest experience, like going out and doing the work?
I mean, we've had some amazing times. I mean, from just some of the events we've had where people come and watch the films, and we'll do Q&As and photo calls and all that sort of stuff. And then visiting Kibera, which is the slum in Kenya, and seeing the work that the Lunch Bowl Network does, and that every penny is spent on the right thing, and that they are
Yeah.
putting smiles on these kids' faces, and feeding their hunger. You know, like, I'm hungry now, but I know that I can
Yeah.
go there and get some food out the fridge, and then in 10 minutes I won't be hungry. But these poor children are, you know, they don't know when their next meal is coming. But now, thankfully, because of the Lunch Bowl Network, they do know when their next meal is
Yeah.
coming. So there's been some amazing moments throughout the years. Deborah is a charity that we work really closely with, which supports children with EB, and EB is a horrible disease that, again, not many people know about. And
Yeah.
you know, meeting some of the poor children who suffer with that condition and meeting their families, and we got really close with a few of the families. One of which, the Dunns, James Dunn, was an aspiring photographer, and this company had like built him an electronic chair with a camera on it, and he could like control it with an iPad. And he
Oh,
basically came to
wow.
the house, and we did a photo shoot down the back of the alleyway, and
That's so cool.
we sold the photo on. And it was just a really nice way to kind of like not only help the people, but like be connected with them at the same time and have a relationship with them. James sadly passed away a couple of years ago now. But there's been endless moments of just happy memories of the Brothers Trust, and meeting people that we're helping, and all sorts.
That's so cool. And well, and it's very, very bit like your career taking off, but a ton of time to have other crazy, amazing experiences with all these charities. Because you guys, how long has the foundation, the trust, been in place now?
Our first event was for Captain America Civil War at the Olympic Theatre in London.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been about 4 years ago now. I think the charity that we support in Kenya, the kids, most of the kids get the food through school, and because of the virus, the schools have been closed. So I'm sure people have been trying to work around that issue to make sure that these kids are still getting fed.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, a lot of the work that we've been doing and stuff is about like been putting smiles on faces, and galvanizing just a good energy and good people. But now as we come out of the lockdown, I'm sure we'll start to sort of grit our teeth and dig our heels in and start raising some money again. And you know, when this lockdown ends, you know, albeit it's definitely been for the right reasons, and the lockdown has been necessity to the health to thousands of people around the world. That said, it's going to be a really tough time for people. People are going to have a really hard time. There's going to be lots of people who have been made redundant, lots of people who are going to have a hard time going back to work. So hopefully we can find some avenues in which we can help people make this lockdown transition back to normality as smooth as possible.
I think that's going to be one of our like biggest challenges. We've been greenlit to like, so we are producing coats and PPE still, so simultaneously. But you know, lockdown was particularly difficult for a lot of people that we serve for reasons that we didn't really think, you know, you don't really expect because this has never happened before. But you know, thinking about domestic violence, like most of the people that we serve are in situation like have gone through or experiencing, and the rate of domestic violence, the rate of incidents skyrocketed because people were trapped inside with their abusers, and there was just no way to get them out. And that's, I think that's one of the biggest things that we're trying to help and support and figure out is like just this, the emotional side of getting people therapy, getting people care, getting people out of those situations. But like there's a lot, we deal with also a lot of PTSD and a lot of things like that from violence. And so, you know, I know that empowerment plan is just like a tiny bit of the population, but I can't imagine how many other people were kind of stuck in that. And you know, how school was their one escape for the day. Like I know that was for me growing up, like school was an escape, and you'd get a meal, you know, where you're going to eat, like the things that you're talking about. What's going to happen in the fall now that schools may or may not be in person? You know, it's a lot of that stuff that we're just trying to wrap our heads around. I know we're still, I think everyone is figuring this out at the same time. I don't think anybody has clear answers, and I think there's a lot of people that we're talking with and working with, and I think this has brought a lot of organizations, making us kind of forcing everyone to like work together in a way that we've never done before, and it's been incredible.
Wow,
because the need is just huge. Like you have to, like for PPE alone, we were working with a coalition of other organizations in a way that we would have never collaborated with.
Yeah,
because taking on that.
Like if you like, there's a charity called Deborah that we support for EB, and there's a big charity in America that also supports EB. And I don't know whether they are connected in any way, but you'd hope that they were, because if you were raising money for two different charities and they were spending money on the same type of research, you'd hope they decided to join together, and then they only have to reach half their goal to be able to pay for the new type of research. So hopefully this is an eye-opener for charities around the world, where if you're working with someone who has a similar goal or cause to you, then you should be teaming and forming bigger and stronger units.
they need to be ecosystems anyway. Like you can't just be off in your own little silo working with people. Like these things are too complex. Like helping somebody transition from homelessness, we're always partnered with shelters. We can't do this without them. Is a huge important part. They then go on to other jobs. We need partners for that. We have partners for GED. Like you just can't do it. And you can't be a Swiss Army knife of a nonprofit either, where you do everything and none of it really well. Like that's the problem. It's like you're the tiny scissors if you don't want to be the tiny scissors on the Swiss Army knife. But you know, we can't solve all of the world's challenges on this call, unfortunately, which we're still working on it. But thank you for your time, and I hope that our empowerment plan baseball cap helps your dad with his golf game a little bit. You know, our merch.
How I've not done that.
Yeah, we'll put some extra like good luck or something. I don't know. So thank you guys, everyone, for watching us. I encourage you to visit thebrothers.trust.org and follow them on social media at The Brothers Trust. And you can find out more about Empowerment Plan at empowermentplan.org and follow us on social media at empowermentplan.org and at Empowerment Plan. I don't normally do this side of the interview, so this has been it's been an interesting experience for me. So thank you for bearing with me. I appreciate it.
Great interviewer. You've done a fantastic job.
Appreciate that. All right.
Thanks.
Send you some swag, some merchandise.
Look forward.
Have a good one. All right. Tell your mom I said goodbye and thank her.
I absolutely will. Thanks very much.